2025, our world boiled over. It has been a year like no other, a year of accelerated daily turmoil. It's marked by explosive geopolitics on one hand and out-of-shape global weather on the other. Every day a new record is broken. Every day a new development disrupts the old order. I am Sunita Narain, and my show last year has tried to explain to you many of these developments as they have happened in our world. Today, I want to take this opportunity at the end of 2025, not just to recap, but to talk about the trends that we must watch out for in 2026. And most importantly, to discuss how do we work out a world order out of the disorder so that we can work towards a new dawn, a new green world. So the trends for 2026. First, climate change is real. And the data shows now that rising temperatures are now breaching the safety guardrail and risk spiraling out of control. Why? According to the European Union's climate change service, Copernicus, global temperatures in November 2025 were 1.54 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial levels. 2025 will go down as the second warmest year on record. And if you take the average of the past 3 years, the world will exceed 1.5 degrees centigrade for the first time. This signals that we have breaching the safety guardrail of 1.5 degrees centigrade rise. Global Tipping Point report, prepared by 160 scientists from across the world, finds that coral reefs in tropical warm oceans are now crossing their thermal tipping point. In other words, coral bleaching and die-off could well be irreversible. The report further warns that the planet is on the brink of similar tipping points in the Amazon rainforest, the Eurasian boreal forest, and there is a possibility of the collapse of major ocean current systems. This will completely throw out of gear global weather systems. Once such critical thresholds are breached, the damage is not just irreversible, but could be amplified by self-perpetuating feedback loops. Think about this like a creature eating itself to death. All this suggests that in 2025, the world has entered a new age of the unknown. Scientific models can predict climate impacts with some certainty for when there are temperature rise of 1.5 degrees centigrade warming. And now what we are finding is not only are these impacts coming earlier than expected, but there is an unpredictability of the future. This means we have nothing to fall back upon. There is no textbook, there is no historical precedent to guide us through what lies ahead. So what is clear now is that this temperature overshoot can only be reversed if there is drastic and immediate reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. But as we are failing in this, the world is now talking about a magical solution to remove the already released CO2 from the atmosphere. The buzzword is carbon dioxide removal, CDR. And this option is gaining traction. The good news is that you can plant trees to sequester carbon dioxide, but there is also talk about technology to forcibly remove CO2 from the atmosphere. So much about this is still unknown. The second trend. This temperature increase is showing up in terms of extreme weather events that are devastating the livelihoods of millions. They are erasing the development dividend and forcing financially overstretched governments to reinvest in reconstruction rather than the much needed development in their countries. And this in turn is adding to the global economic distress and human misery. Down to Earth's annual assessment of the annual weather events based on daily data from the Indian Meteorological Department finds that in 2025, as much as 99% of the days saw extreme weather events. This is the highest in the last 4 years. But let's be clear, this is not limited to India. Even as the year was drawing close to an end, 2025 saw ferocious cyclones ripping apart multiple countries from Indonesia to Sri Lanka. Lives and property have been lost. Countries are now suffering both a human tragedy and economic shock. When it comes to India, the International Monetary Fund, IMF's November 2025 report, which it did on the prospects for India's economy, for the first time includes a warning on the growing risk to growth and even long-term sovereign debt risk because of climate change, both because of the investment India has to do in decarbonization, but also in reconstruction. So, 2025, climate change has shown up in the balance sheet of countries. And this, in the future, will get to be even more negative. The third trend, vulnerable and fragile regions like the Himalayas are holding a mirror of the times to come. And as extreme weather batters the region, we have seen this year the damage is compounded by mindless mismanagement of the environment. Please watch my show on the Himalayas, which will explain to you in greater detail what happened this year. But the fact is, climate change is a consequence of the emissions that we have burnt into the atmosphere for our economic growth and human greed. And now we are making things worse deliberately and willfully because of the way we do development. We can either choose to acknowledge this, that we are living in an age of climate change, that we are living through catastrophic times that can bring even mighty mountains to their knees, or we can continue to bury our heads in the sand and continue to see even worse devastation in the years to come. The fourth trend, important, because even as science has spoken, and nature's devastation is showing up in our national balance sheet, the world is paradoxically witnessing clear signs of reversal in the political commitment needed to take urgent climate change action. At the beginning of 2025, January, Mr. Trump was sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. And he has made it absolutely clear that his country will revert to fossil fuels as his preferred energy source. However, and let's be very clear about this, there is not only the US which is leading this retreat, there is a broader global hesitancy, and there are reasons for it which we need to understand, because only then can we move forward. One, countries, particularly in the industrialized North, the European Union and others, are finding it difficult to scale up low carbon solutions within their existing economic models. And at a time when conservative governments are gaining ground, these strategies are becoming politically difficult to advocate for and to argue for. The second reason is that the geopolitics of the green technology supply chains is emerging today not as an opportunity but as a constraint. China controls most of the rare mineral ecosystem, from mining to processing. It also dominates the business of manufacturing of green technologies, from batteries to solar panels to electric vehicles. And this is leading countries to work against green transition. As I talk to you in the twilight of 2025 and in the approaching light of 2026, the European Union has reneged on its commitment to ban the internal combustion engine from 2035. The fact is, its automakers have found it tough to compete with the Chinese-made electric vehicles, which are not only cheaper, but often technologically superior. So this is now pushing not for the green transition, but against the green transition. And this is something that the world will have to resolve in the coming years. Trend number 5, and there is some good news here, is that 2025 has demonstrated that green technologies work and can be scaled up to even displace conventional energy in electricity generation. In 2025, for the first time globally, renewable energy overtook coal as the primary source of electricity during the first 9 months of the year. This data is from the Global Energy Recap of 2025 from the energy think tank Ember, which notes that solar power has seen rapid growth, doubling over the past 3 years and adding more electricity than any other source during this period. And even though more than half of this increase in solar generation has come from a single country, China, others are also catching up. For instance, wind and solar generated more than a third of Brazil's electricity in August of 2025. India, we know, is investing more and more in renewable infrastructure. In addition, Amber reports that battery costs are on the decline, and with affordable storage, solar and wind power can now compete with new coal-based power plants. This, to me, is going to be the most exciting big question for 2026. Because no longer is the question the feasibility of green technologies, but how they will be integrated into existing electricity systems. We know that the intermittency of these technology, solar works when the sun is shining and wind energy works when the wind is blowing, require either large-scale storage solutions or backup sources to supply electricity during the missing hours. This is now the central energy question of our age. How will these new energy systems displace, replace, or be retrofitted in the existing fossil fuel-based grid? And what can and must we do differently? Please keep watching me because I will keep discussing this with you. But the big headline of 2025 is that Project Globalization is now on the line. And the question is, how will this be reworked? Can it be reworked now so that it can work this time for people and the planet? We know that the global trading system is in disarray. But let's also be clear that Project Globalization was built on the foundation that the cost of manufacturing was high in the rich world, labor was expensive, and the cost of regulations were prohibitive. And as a result of it, the trade system was moved to where this was cheaper. But this also meant that climate change was the other big casualty, as emissions were outsourced and not reduced. The question is, what will be the new shape of a global trading system which will be better for climate, better for consumption, and better for livelihoods of the poor. The seventh, and this is really the future trend, the blueprint for the new green world, must put people at the center so that growth is inclusive and affordable, and that sustainability and climate mitigations are the outcomes of this inclusive growth. This, to me, is the big agenda, the good that will come out of this big churn. Our aim for tomorrow is that it must be more resilient, more inclusive, and more sustainable. We are in the beginning of the epoch of climate change, and the world has moved into a different tomorrow. We must plan for a different age. We cannot remain prisoners of yesterday. We must become vanguards of a new dawn, a promise grounded in the lessons of our generation. Otherwise, we will risk squandering away the coming decade, 2026 and onwards, into a nothingness, a vortex of spiraling climate change impacts and more misery for large numbers of people. The future is for us to change. This is the message for 2026, a message of hope, a message where we must have a vision to change based on our mistakes, to build that new green world. And I hope we can do that together. I will continue to bring to you this show in 2026. Please watch, please share, and please send me your comments. I very much look forward to it. Happy New Year, and see you now in 2026.